And welcome back, everybody. Here we are again. We're talking circles and squares tonight. Just like always, things are going to be a little different tonight. We're talking about the other side of the music. I wanted to talk about one of the things that makes music so enjoyable is how it's presented to the the first the first sense you get of it, which isn't always oral. Sometimes it's visual, and especially why we all collect, 12-inch LP records because it's a large art presentation, and it's really important that the first thing you see when they're trying to sell music to you, the first thing you see is this beautiful, captivating cover, which is something that's always drawn me in, um, especially to music. But then as an adult, I wanted to further my love for it and really get to know about the artists who contribute just as much as the musicians to this beautiful presentation. Sometimes they're, involved very deeply, like they're part of the music making process. They're a member of the band. Sometimes they're just, someone who gives them the okay. Yeah, go ahead and use my, shit stain on your album cover. I'm fine with it, which it's all great. We all love it. But here we are. I'm talking about 10 of my very, very, very favorite uh, album arts, the covers of albums. So yeah, I'll just dive right into it. So this first one on the list, I have talked about before. I featured it in the very first video I made. Really wicked cool, crazy, psychedelic kind of space stoner crazy rock band called Slift from France. Um, Equally as impressive art, which I made mention of. So here it is again. I'm showing it off again in all of its splendor. Um, but even more fun, on this video, we're going to be discussing the men and women and, you know, everything in between and outside of those confines. The people, the humans that make this art. This being a man, a Frenchman, goes by the name of Kaza, or that's his pseudonym, Kaza. I believe it's short for, I have notes here that I'm going to keep looking at because a lot of this was research and a lot of this was homework for me, which I love. I love doing homework. So the man's name was Philippe Cazamayou, or something like that, some weird French name. But the more I dug in and the more I learned about the guy, really interesting feller, was made notorious all throughout France as being kind of the, this wasn't a phrase that I read anywhere. I just immediately kind of latched onto it because my childhood was steeped in comic book art, and I loved comic books, and I loved reading them, and I loved collecting them, and I especially loved the pen and sketch art, and how like surrealistic and hyper realistic artists were able to get with just ink, and it just, this obviously being like, the creme de la creme. This man, I immediately compared it to a very famous in the 80s and 90s comic book artist Todd McFarlane, who was made notorious in America for kind of reimagining and re-envisioning the look of Spider-Man in the 90s and gave him the real, like, kind of twisted, hypermorphic kind of, lots of shadowing, and just really took that character and made him, put him in a whole new light. And I believe he was the creator of the Spawn comic books. So most people that grew up in America, of course, are familiar with that. This guy being a Frenchman, I kind of immediately just kind of like assimilated the two, and come to find he's a very, very prevalent comic book artist in France and has been for like the last 35 years. So yeah, again, his name Philippe, just goes by Kaza, but I just wanted to show this off a little bit more, like I said, in all of its splendor. Beautiful depictions of, space and Space Lord and his monster sword, his weapon of choice, and he's just dragging it through the ether or whatever the hell is going on here. I don't know. I just love this ethereal sci-fi art, and of course just the absolutely gorgeous depiction of the male form and what he's able to do with just all of this detail. And I just love his neck and his skull outline and the shadowing. Just what beauty, what detail. If I could get, I think they make large posters of that. I'm gonna look for it online and hopefully buy one. Because just utterly impressive. This was what got me right off the bat with this group, and I was most impressed with this before I even heard the music. I would have never, I probably would have never heard the music, never would have given it a shot if it wasn't for the just absolutely, breathtaking art. So that's why we love it. Again, this band is called Slift. They are a French slam jam and rock band of modern day contemporary killer music. The album's called Uman. You can get it at your local record store, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, it might be kind of getting a little more rare. Now it's getting some popularity, and they probably only pressed so many, so hopefully they're gonna do do a reissue soon. So, moving on down the line. This one's gonna get some chuckles from everyone. Most of the shit that I bring out does get people kind of chuckling, I'm sure. But here's another that I kind of grew up seeing all the time. We all did. It was kind of everywhere. It was prevalent. Everyone's dad or uncle or cousin had a pile of 8 tracks, getting dusty in the closet, or a pile of LPs, and this one kind of being synonymous with lots of other kind of sci-fi and really cool art, colorful, that was floating around. And I'm not absolutely positive, but you may have even seen some of his art gracing the front covers of things like comic books probably, but also things like video game cartridges and things of that nature. This gentleman, his name is Jim Welch. Of course, the very, very famous Journey album, Escape. But this takes me back right to 1985 when I was a kid, and there was something that was very, very similar to this, like I said, that was gracing all of the Atari cartridges, and like this really cool science fiction fantasy, very colorful, just really just kind of hard to explain, just super hyper realistic, the way he gets the shine and shimmer on these like space vehicles that he draws, and just the color. This is a textured, cover, and you immediately fall in love with it, even if you're not a child, adults alike, the beautiful blues and purples, and just, really, the dude knew what he was doing. I guess, after a little bit of research, he was just kind of your average, everyday dude who wasn't really focusing on being an artist, per se. He was working in a San Francisco radio station in the early 70s, mid 70s, and this was in San Francisco, and Journey was just gaining like real big popularity. I think this might have even been before Steve Perry joined the band. So it was probably their first album, second album, and he met the guys at a radio station that he was working at, and they happened to see some of his art maybe or something like that, and he just, bam, fell into cahoots with the band. And basically, I think from this one, maybe one from before, I'm not sure, but I know that from this album on, he did all their artwork. So all that great, kind of like, spaceship kind of style of artwork that Journey was doing all the way through the 80s, he was responsible for all of that. And just, how fucking cool. I just love this stuff. Just how 80s, you know, and like I said, I just love the colorful hyper realism and just the sci-fi kind of stuff. And you know, this had to have been, you know, just kind of his art being bounced around through like comic book culture and video game culture and just all that cool shit that was happening in the early 80s that of course I grew up loving. um, Also very very famous, I think he did like a Doobie Brothers album cover. I know he did a couple of Grateful Dead ones that were super super huge, with the Scarab and um, MOXOAO, whatever that album's called. I'm not a deadhead, but I know he did the cover for Blues for Allah, which is really kind of the only Dead album that I even really like at all. I think it's a great fucking album, but the album art is really fantastic with the skeleton playing the, you know, the fiddle, and everyone's familiar with that. So yeah, Jim Welch, fantastic artist, modern day. Not sure if he's still alive and kicking, but yeah, this should hopefully kind of spur your curiosity. Get online and check out some more of his art and what he does. So fantastic guy. All right, moving on down the line, getting even more kind of sentimental for me because I absolutely adore this man's music. And so it's so, not that I don't love Journey, of course I love Journey, everyone loves Journey, but this man's music is so much more my flavor and so much more up my alley. And this was an instance for me, like I fell in love with the music first before I even knew about the art at all, because I think I just maybe heard it through a friend years and years and years ago from like high school. Heard of him through a friend or through the grapevine or something like that, just, you know, him being a seminal electronic music artist, but then his, you know, album art it really takes you aback and really kind of blows you away. Of course, Jean-Michel Jarre, everyone's famous or familiar with this man's famous works. The Oxygen series, I think he has done like 8, maybe even 9 or 10 of them throughout a 35, 40 year span. This one being the first, and everyone has seen this art, and everyone immediately kind of went, wow, that's really cool. It is. I'd never seen anything like it. You know, just this wonderful painting of the Earth's layers, skin layers being peeled away to reveal this kind of like menacing, almost, you know, I don't know, dude. Like, I kind of immediately thought, like, is this like some weird, like, proto-metal album or something like that? And no, it's like straight up, you know, synthesizer jam and rock. It's really, really fucking great if you're into synthesizer music and electronic stuff from, you know, the 70s and 80s. But yeah, this Frenchman puts his indelible stamp on, you know, electronic music. It's just beautiful, takes you away. The art being created by another Frenchman, I believe his name is also Michel, what is it? Michel Granger. Not, obviously that's not the way to pronounce it because he's French, so it's Granger or something like that, I don't know. But Michel Granger, just, wow, breathtaking, you know? Breathtaking, especially for like, what, 1974, I think it was? 1976, people just kind of like, wow, creepy, haunting, really cool. And then of course even more creepy and haunting with what he was doing as a visual artist, and just kind of just cut and paste, creepy, we're watching you kind of. I just love this just, you know, gave, you know, ultimate inspiration for all of those you know, art rock bands to come of the next 2 decades through the 90s. You know, obviously huge inspiration gathered by, you know, probably Radiohead, you know, and stuff like that. You can just see it, you can just feel it. What just absolutely captivating art. I love this stuff so much. And this is drawn, you know, this is pencil sketch, you know, colored pencil sketch. Amazing. Michel Granger. Dude he's I think he's dead now. This was more kind of like, he was popular, and not even mostly for his art, believe it or not. I'll go into that in a minute, but he was kind of like, you know, early 20th century artist, and lived through World War II, and I think he died in probably the 70s or 80s, right after He was made famous for this. So reading up on the guy, didn't find a lot about him. There really isn't a lot on the internet about this dude. But he was credited, before he was credited as a visual artist, he was credited as a chemist and a writer, like an editorial writer or something like that. So yeah, I guess chemicals being his number one passion, and amazing imagery, just kind of taking a backseat to everything. But fuck, man, we've all seen this art, like I said, permeating through the halls of progressive rock and electronic rock and everything. It's like everyone's familiar with this shit. Love it, absolutely love it. Yeah, definitely had to be in my top 10 of favorite album art. I've had an LP in this form, some way, shape, or form, hanging on my walls, probably since I was in college. Probably since the late 90s. This is one of these albums has just been floating around with me with a tack hole. Those albums that just like, they don't have a record in them because the record has long been thrashed and scratched and thrown around and shit and it's long gone, but you save the cover because you love the art, and they all have the little pinholes in them from hanging them on your walls, because it's just badass. It's just fucking badass. Yeah, Jean-Michel Jarre. Get it for the art, stay for the music. It's fucking fantastic. All right, so more awesome art. These guys, they've been on at least 3 of my lists so far in the last, I guess I've been doing this for about a month, a little over a month now. More like probably like 6 weeks. Yeah. So these guys, they somehow make their way onto a list pretty much every other time or every third time or something like that. So once again, the amazing Australian group called Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. But boy, they know how to pick the artistry that they involve themselves with. At first thought, I'm like, oh, cool. They have like a friend, or maybe one of them is like an insanely awesome, abstract or, whatever, psychedelic painter, or however this was done. I've had friends in the past. I've always had like this, just like, art, just, I'm not an artist. Like I can't do anything. I can't paint. I can't do anything. I can't draw. I'm terrible. So I really gravitate toward it because I'm really intrigued by it, and people that can do it, to me it's magic. I dabbled in musicianship for most of my life, and so I can play some instruments and sing a tune and whatever, and so to me that's kind of like, oh yeah, whatever, I can ride a bike, everyone can build a birdhouse, what the fuck ever. I don't call myself a musician anymore because, you know what I mean, like when I build a birdhouse, I don't call myself a carpenter. So anyway, convoluted, I know, I'm sorry, but I really gravitate toward artists, visual artists, because it's something that I've never been capable of, and it's something that really, it's magic to me how someone can come up with these things in their mind and just like make just beauty out of it. And this is what it does it for me. This totally does it for me. This is basically an orgasm to me. I mean, it's like color. Wow, that's beautiful. I had a friend, 25 years ago, this dude I met, he was a cook in a kitchen, and I was a server, and we just like would listen to fucking Rainbow albums together and fucking Black Sabbath and stuff and go drink beer all night. And he would melt crayons onto canvas and wax paper and stuff and like blow on it and like make all this insanely cool it's something he learned probably in the 5th grade. His mom taught him, learned by watching Sesame Street, who knows. But the guy's name was John, and we used to just he could shred to fucking Metallica albums like no man I'd ever seen. And he was like just this burnt out, like, day cook. He was 40 years old. I was 20 years old, and he just made this really sick fucking art. And I just like, man, what a cool dude. Sorry for the long, crazy story, but that's what this kind of shit reminds me of. And come to find, after some research, this is it's digital art, created by some not obscure, but some crazy, like, kind of hidden figure, I guess. After some research, I discovered that this person, or whoever it is, a collective, man, woman, I don't know, is kind of an anonymous figure, so to speak, but it goes by the name of Zuasi. Zawasi? Something like that. I don't know. It's all digital. It's digital art. And it's all like kind of like fractally based, psychedelic, kind of like inspired by drug culture and whatever dumb shit, you know what I mean? But it's just beauty. The color. This is an album called High Visceral, Part 1, Part 2. It was initially released as 2 separate LPs, and then for all the folks who didn't get a chance to grab it up, they re-released it and put both volumes into one double LP for me. Thanks, guys. But each one has its own individual art and stamp, and it's like, give me a break. How just amazingly gorgeous is that? And it didn't take away from it when I discovered that it's digital art. And it's like, so what? It's still art, and it's still beauty, and it's still just absolutely breathtaking. What else can I say? We've all done our fair share of drugs, and man, thank goodness for this kind of stuff. May it be the product of said experimentation, or may it be, something that was already there. I don't know. I'll shut up about this, but just what beauty, what better way to visually represent their style of music and what they're capable of and what they love and what we all enjoy about them. It's psychedelic through and through, and it's just fucking great. So, get it for the art, stay for the music. Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, High Visceral, Parts 1 and 2. Good luck finding it. That shit, super rare. This would be credited as probably, it's probably the most I've paid for an album to date. I'm not going to say what I paid for it, but way too much. Not true. I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I paid what I did for it. We won't talk about money anymore. Money's fake anyway. So, let's continue with this list. All of these wonderful artists that I love so much, pasting their garbage on the front of records. This band, fuck, what an incredible band. And like I said, another just like match made in heaven. Or excuse me, no, not a match made in heaven, because there's no match. The individual who is responsible for the creation of the music is also responsible for the creation of the cover art. So I misspoke. I'll shut up and introduce this man. What is his name again? John Dyer Baisley. We're all familiar with this incredible fucking metal band called Baroness. Hailing from the south, I believe Savannah, Georgia. Initially, this man, I believe, came from Philadelphia, was raised in Philadelphia, and attended, after some research, attended an art school in Rhode Island called it was like the Rhode Island Institute of Art Design or something like that. I'm fairly certain. And man, he studied hard, did well, knows his shit, obviously. Look at this just breathtaking shit he is capable of. Besides being a monster fucking guitar player, incredible singer, one of the few metal outfits, this is kind of a silly way to put it, but I fucking love metal music. I love it, but I'm not a metalhead. So I don't just immediately latch on and worship anything, all things metal, I'm not one of those all things metal type of dudes, but I really gravitate toward what I guess people would call art rock, art metal, progressive metal, whatever. I wouldn't even classify these guys as any of that. But because everything is so art driven and just the outer presentation just screams like, hey, we're some artistic dudes, I just gravitate toward this shit, and it's just fantastic, punch you in the face metal music, and a thing of beauty. The man obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, but I'm just going to take a stab and guess that he really respects and appreciates and loves and adores and worships women. Heavy, heavy, heavy female empowerment theme all throughout their music as well as the art. This is their first album. They title all their albums just by the color. So this is Red Album. They don't call it the Red Album. I think it's just called Red. Second album being titled Blue. Third and fourth, I believe, the Green and Yellow double LP. Fourth being Purple and Silver or Purple and Gray. They have a Gray and Black. I don't fucking know. No, their first album was kind of like more of like kind of like an EP times two kind of thing before they put this out, I guess. This was my introductory record to them, and you know, needless to say, I was fucking completely, you know, knocked on my ass. I saw these guys live in, I think it must have been 2017 down in California. Just top notch outfit. So yeah, like I was saying, you have this beautiful, beautiful depiction of these like goddess type figures, and you know, just the shading and the musculature. And I love how almost kind of anti-feminine in a sense kind of is. I wouldn't say, I didn't say anti-feminism, I said anti-feminine. They just are, because they just have a look of just, you know, being very, very empowered creatures of nature, witchy shit, you know what I mean? I love it. So I guess you could say it's, you know, hyper feminine. I don't know. I'm kind of speaking way out my ass right now, and I'm probably going to anger a lot of people with kind of like my insensitive type of talking, but that's the vibes I get. I get the feeling of something that's like, you know, outside of the feminine or masculine. You know, there's little notes of just like all the little things that are going on here, like, you know, sexual in nature, fertility, there's, you know, prevalence and you know, themes of always birds and like eggs, you know, and like these things look like little phallic representations and just super cool witchy shit. You know, I don't know what more I can say without either seeming, you know, misogynist or insensitive or whatever, but I just love the art and I just love everything about this band. So anyone that happens to love the heavier music and the stuff that's not super heavy, if you like your metal, like I said, a little bit more kind of like, I don't know, I hate to put it that way because it kind of debases people that have a love toward metal, but it's just a little bit kind of more on the artsy side, I guess you could say. Baroness, first album, Red, came out way, way, way back, what, 2002, I think? No, 2007. I'm not even sure when that album came out, so I was way late in the arrival of these guys. They had already been around for a couple of years, and they had already released the Blue album before I even heard of them. So I'm always kind of like a late bloomer when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes to like your, you know, metal and the punk and things like that. I'm just like not a super cool guy, and I don't spend half my day on the internet just like, well, I just need to get new music because it just it really feeds me, you know. I was like, no, I latch on to stuff that like, fuck, I'm still listening to the same shit I was when I was like 12 years old, you know. So I'm not always like on the hunt, you know. I know I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know that are just chronically on the hunt for like what really, you know, gets their mind pumping. And I usually find things and I settle back and kind of like, you know, kind of retire for a few weeks with like this new thing, or a few months with this new thing I just discovered, and really like make love to it, you know, and get to know it. So one of those bands for me. Yeah, I'll keep plugging away here. Moving on down the road. This one, I'm going to do some more kind of just rambling about this because, you know, I discovered this along the Prague highways, like everyone does. and you're like, oh, super cool. There's like a Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but it's not a soundtrack. It's, music inspired by. And then you see all kinds of weird different releases of it. Well, this is a release of the all too famous Bo Hansen's Lord of the Rings, music inspired by the literature Lord of the Rings. This was a Swedish man, Bo Hansen. And this was the original release from Sweden in 1977, I want to say. Somewhere right around there, mid to late 70s. Anyway, I saw this and I had to have it because the American and UK press and every other like European press is like, the art is super boring. And this was only released in Sweden, and I just love it. This super dirty, watercolory, like almost kind of juvenile. I love the way the colors blend together. I love all the little things that are happening down here that you don't see until you really focus into the art. I love that about art, when you see it from a distance and you're like, okay, wow, neat washy colors. But then when you really get in and you see all this really, and it's not detailed either, it's just, it almost looks like it could have been like an afterthought. Like, I don't know. It's great. This is kind of like an all-encompassing cavernous kind of thing, because you see, like, this is obviously a representation of Mordor, and then you have like, the mines of Moria and the ravens rising from out of, whatever, Saruman's. I'm sorry, I'll save you all the, hyper nerdery shit, but I don't know. I love this kind of shit. I love this type of art. I love watercolor. And it just kind of, I don't know. It looks like someone took their palette and they had one of those like cheap dollar store, drugstore, watercolor things that you get for your child, and it just has the blue, green, red, all the colors in a row. And it looks like some kid was just like, oh, sweet, and just blue, green, and just kind of plops them all in there, and then, an adult comes by and kind of just goes, let's draw a castle in there and some plumes of smoke and some flames and a Balrog and fucking A, that's the Lord of the Rings, I don't know. Absolutely endearing, fell in love, and of course it being a really cool collector's piece, for people who love prog music and, that type of mastery. The music's just phenomenal, very kind of cool, subtle, smoky, orchestral, proggy shit, all instrumental. So get it for the music, hang around, enjoy the art, and the art will grow on you. Really cool, and I love how it's titled in the Swedish, Sagan om ringen, Lord of the Rings. So, just kind of one of my favorite pieces in my collection that I more or less just wanted to share with you guys because I'm kind of proud of it. I think it's really neat. And the art is fantastic. So, yeah. There's that one. Okay, moving kind of fast. I guess I don't need to slow down. There's not much more to say here. Got a few more picks. Again, wanted to thank everybody for supporting the channel and stopping by and seeing what I have to say. Had a really great time last week. I hope you all got to see my video with my friend, special guest, my friend Nick that came by. It was really great. I'm still kind of like hungover from that episode that I did with him last week. Man, what a fun. You could probably tell I was just like super jazzed. We don't get to hang out very often anymore, obviously, because of the COVIDs and all that. But we maintained our safe distance. I've been tested. I'm sure he's been tested too. He's been back at work for a while. I work alone, so when you get a chance to see old friends and people you love, that really, it was a real treat. I'm glad everyone got to tune in and enjoy that if you were able to enjoy it. So yeah, still pretty jazzed from that. So I'm going to keep talking about some of my favorite album art here. Moving on down the line. This is a famous one. A lot of people will really, they'll know about it. They love it. Everyone knows him for his incredible guitar mastery, jazz, folky guitar work. Gabor Szabo, the master himself, Hungarian guitar artist. But more importantly, I would have never discovered Gabor Szabo if it wasn't for this really, really fantastic, captivating, gorgeous, just gorgeous artwork. Almost like a pointillism type of thing going on. Hard to explain. Immediately people get those vibes of like, oh, it looks like a tarot card or something like that. I believe this person probably even made a living at one point designing things for tarot. And I've seen similar such illustrations in books by one of my favorite authors, Robert Anton Wilson, noted, super genius, occultist, madman, awesome guy. Used to run around with all the counterculture heroes, a counterculture icon himself. But he did a series called Cosmic Trigger, a 3-part book series that he did. And I don't think it's the same artist, but very, very, very similar, like I said. This was an artist, what was his name? I researched it. The man's name was John Austin. Sounds really kind of run-of-the-mill, kind of a standard, typical American name, but not so. John Austin was a British man who actually was born late in the 19th century, lived throughout the early part of the 20th century, gained some notoriety in the 20s for his illustrations. I think what did I read about? He got, Art Deco was really kind of like taking hold at that point in time. So he really gained a lot of inspiration from that. But this style, I wouldn't say is Art Deco from what I know about art, but I think it inspired him to really kind of branch out and try new things. And what I was reading about, he became really famous for these types of illustrations, but he would get huge offers for lots of money to do giant publications. He would do the illustrations for these very, very large publications of very famous works, big, thick, giant tome type books of like Charles Dickens classics and Shakespeare plays and all that. And he would do these elaborate sketch drawings for these big illustrations companies that were huge in the 20s and 30s, putting out these really massive, awesome books that I'm sure are giant collector's items now and worth just thousands upon thousands of dollars. So John Austin, just really super cool. Like I said, almost kind of like, you have like kind of Celtic knot working here, but there's like little bits of pointillism and just like the abstract, surreal, psychedelic almost, kind of just like really weird, kind of occulty, super cool shit. Anyone that's familiar with a modern day rock band called Wand, the band Wand and all the artist stuff that he does, I think the guitar player singer does the art for the albums. Very, very, he gets a lot of, inspiration from this. Super cool. Everybody, as far as Gabor Szabo goes, like I wouldn't say it's hit and miss, because a lot of the stuff that he has done has been kind of a little bit campy, a little bit cheesy. He did a lot of albums for like the ABC Impulse label and like all those kind of like mad jazz hits of the 50s, 60s, 70s kind of thing. But this one just being, I don't know if it was his first album, I don't think it was, but just kind of the most notorious, and just the overall presentation, super glossy, fucking just awesome. The record label called Skye, Skye Records. This is an original pressing. I found this in a fucking antique store in Eugene, like on Fifth Avenue over by the jail, by the Lane County Jail. And it was just like, there was a furniture store. It was an antique furniture store, and they had like stupid, like clothing for hipster kids and shit, and like all kinds of weird goo-gaw and cigarette cases, and then just this tiny, like in most stores, just this tiny little peach crate of random LPs, and this just happened to be in there. There was like no label on it, and I was like, it was $12. What the fuck is this? It's in mint condition, original pressing, gorgeous art, not even a Nick on the cover, and just, yeah, one of my best finds when it comes to crate digging or, junk store hopping. One of the best finds I've ever had. So everybody get some Dreams by Gabor Szabo, Hungarian guitarist extraordinaire. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. Okay, kind of getting down to the last little bit here, everybody. Again, another group that has graced my lists more than once. This will be at least once or twice, or maybe even thrice for these guys. And I'm really glad that I'm getting to feature them in this light. I had talked before about, how much I love their music, but I mentioned equally as much how much I love the artwork, and how I think before in one of my videos I had said that one of the band members, or there's other band members that share, they're on this label that I love, this record label. Anyway, I had misspoke about that. The gentleman who makes the art for almost all of the albums that this record company puts out, he does just 90% of the artwork, but he's actually not a player in any of those bands that I had mentioned. Of course, again, I'm talking about the band Pat Peer. I love Pat Peer so fucking much. The Danish jazz trio, we're talking psychedelic fusion jazz rocketry. It's super fucking cool. But the man behind the artistry, his name is Jakob Scott. I think that's how they pronounce it. Similar to most in Scandinavian countries and Germany and places like that in the world where the J is a Y sound maybe. And yeah, I think it's Jacob with a K, Scott with a SKOTT with the weird slash through the O and all kinds of dots and slashes all throughout his name. Jacob Scott, however you want to pronounce it. That's the man's name. His game is some really intriguing, super cool, again, kind of like a weird kind of Art Deco. It's so simplistic and so, people would think it's boring. It's so subtle. I know it's probably hard to see through the camera, but besides all these really cool looking lines that looks almost kind of like a an overhead view of maybe a city with a street or buildings or something like that, it's also the same kind of design in the background, and a real subtle all kinds of squares and rectangles and shapes, and just so prominent and simple. And I like the color schemes too. I like the real dull, flat, cafeteria, jail orange, the benches in jail. And I don't know, man. I like its overly simplistic nature. This is their fourth album, just titled 4, Roman numeral 4. The one before that was number 3. This is the one that really caught my eye. Just absolutely fucking stunning. I can't even explain it, why I like it so much. What he does and the simplistic nature of it. It looks like he probably just takes spray paint, and uses some sort of stencil or some sort of template to just create all these really cool symmetrical and asymmetrical, psychedelic weird patterns. And the way what's happening here as a juxtaposed to the background. He's got to be doing stuff with rattle can and just all kinds of great shit. And like I said, it's so subtle, you wouldn't be able to see all the detail that's going on in these spheres and all these little, these little squares that he's doing. I think it's genius, a stroke of genius. The man himself does make music for El Paraíso Records as well, and it's just it's all his own. He just uses his name, the artist Jacob Scott, and he plays. It's kind of jazzy, but it's more kind of drum synthesizer kind of beat music. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what people call it. It's not hip hop, but it's synthesizer and drum machine, and he's just kind of programming it all, and it's just it's not house music either. I don't know. It's jazz infused. It's fusion jazz, progressive, synth synth music, almost kind of poppy, kind of synth pop, I guess, but it's all instrumental. Wicked fucking cool. Everybody check out Jacob Scott. And of course, check out everything on El Paraíso Records out of Denmark. They put out so many great bands. A band called Mothership, a band called Kaza Sui. I think that's how you pronounce it. Kazua Sui, something like that. They have like 10 fucking albums. Super cool. They've all done, a live at Roadburn. They've all done numerous live records. I know Kaza Sui has done a series of like summer sessions, live albums, and like the Pewter sessions, and just like all kinds of stuff, man. One of my very favorite record labels. I'm gonna do a video in the future, probably of my top 10 favorite record labels. So stay tuned. It's gonna be in there. It's probably gonna be top 3. The shit they put out is astounding, absolutely astounding. So yeah, but the art is gorgeous. Captivating. Took me away right from the very beginning. So everybody check them out. Good stuff. Good for your soul. Good for your eyes. Good for your ears. Good for the heart. Let's keep pressing along. There's only 2 more that I want to talk about. And I'm gonna go through this one now because it's kind of like really fucking obvious for anyone that has grown to kind of know me and what I'm into and what I like. This is, I'll just start holding them up because it's like, the fucking Roger Dean. I mean, come on. Roger Dean, responsible for everyone's, sweet tooth, everyone's tickling everyone's fancy, anyone that loves that kind of surreal landscape, hyper realistic, crazy cool fantasy style art that was coming out of the 70s and beyond. He did not just all of Yes's artwork. Well, he didn't do all of Yes's artwork, but of course he did the big ones that everyone's familiar with. Did art for a lot of bands. What's that band called? Obese and Badger and Greenslade and like whatever. Dude, like tons. Didn't he do some shit for that other like, who's that like fucking hard rock prog band from the 70s? I can't remember their name right now. But yeah, he is beyond famous. I especially wanted to talk about him, not just because his art is just, absolutely, astounding and phenomenal art, but I wanted to showcase the Steven Wilson Yes box set because it's all different and it's done by him. It's done by Roger Dean, and he reimagined and redid his most famous works for the band Yes, all throughout the early 70s and mid 70s. So of course this being one of their most famous records of all time. The album Fragile in 1971, and he took the same, idea of, whatever he's got going on here with the globe and, the fish ship or whatever it is, but kind of redid the background. And it's like kind of a darker, kind of a scene, space scenescape kind of thing. Pretty cool. Totally re-envisioned the Close to the Edge artwork, wherein the classic artwork was just a textured cover of like kind of a green to gray, almost pointillism style, kind of a fade, where it was just almost kind of a one solid, nearly almost kind of a fluorescent green color. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with that, but this being, I really kind of was just stunned when I saw it. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. What it looks like is like a view from space of like a coastline and like all of like the what do you call it, the phytoplankton and like the bioluminescence of the ocean, like from a space view. It's like kind of what it reminds me of. Very cool rainbow colors. I was just excited, kind of tickled by this, really neat. Didn't really go too much further with what he originally envisioned with the Tales from Topographic Oceans. This just happens to be a little bit more vivid, and it's offset. Of course, the pyramid, I believe, was on this side in the original art. Everything kind of just had a different look. The colors were a little bit more subtle. Everything really pops. It's much brighter, and I think it just kind of like is slightly re-envisioned here in this one, but this is probably one of my favorites of his of all time. I won't go on about this album, but I could for a long time. But yeah, that's a beauty right there. And he didn't do anything with the Relayer album. Left it as it was. Exactly how it is. Just a absolute piece of beauty. It's just a little bit more vibrant. The colors, the contrast, you know, being just a little bit more less subtle, less whitewashed. A little bit more tones in there, but it's just gorgeous. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to bring those out, talk about Roger Dean, how beautiful those are. Because the Steven Wilson box set, if you guys are Yes fans and you aren't familiar with this, oh boy, came out probably like 3 or 4 years ago. It's pretty expensive, it's kind of hard to find, but you can get it from the UK for like $100, something like that. But it has, you know, their best albums from 70 through 75. It's a total of 6 LPs, because if you include Topographic Oceans, it's a double LP. But yeah, just the gorgeous art, and if you're a Yes fan, you gotta have it. But even more so, I wanted to talk about, you know, the classics. Roger Dean, I was really, really happy to know and see kind of toward the end of Chris Squire's days. God rest his soul, he passed. I think it's been 5 years, I think now, 5 or 6 years since Chris Squire died. Just before he passed, they were able to get together with a lot of the old dudes from the old scene, from the drama days with Trevor Horn, and they were able to do an album it's really, really fucking good, guys. Like, if you're a Yes fan, if you're not a Yes fan, I don't even care. This was the ideas and the sounds that they were getting from that kind of like, you know, that push of like the no wave punk rock. Like, we're still Yes, we're still doing progressive music, but it's like you can tell like 90125 was like, oh, that shit's coming. It's that sound, you know what I mean? Really good. And they did this shit when the guys are like 75 years old, and they made this album, Fly From Here Return Trip, which is, it's like an addendum to their album Fly From Here, which was different. I'm not sure exactly how it all worked out, but the vocals done by Trevor Horn, all of the compositions done by the guys from Yes, and I think this was Chris Squire's last album. And the art. It was the first time, I think, that Roger Dean had agreed to do album art for them again, for like an actual LP, rather than just like, you know, allowing them to use like, you know, his art for like a box set or like a reissue of some live shows or like whatever, some boring shit. Like, this was like a straight up full length release, full album, with probably some of the most beautiful artwork by Roger Dean I've ever seen. All these greens, the greens and the yellows and the nature. You know, a lot of times Roger Dean's stuff is so stark, you know what I mean? Kind of really stark and really just kind of like, it's hard to put to words, but this is just so much more lush and subtle than what I've seen from him and his long standing beautiful career. And just this, you know, whatever the hell it is, it's an impala or something like that, like a bighorn sheep, I don't know, dancing around these rocks, just the trees, and just absolute mastery. So forever synonymous, these two, like, you know, like tea and crumpets, like tuna fish and cigarettes, you know. Roger Dean and Yes will go down in history, just like, you know, peas and carrots. Match made in heaven again. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about more match made in heaven type stuff. This is like, you know, kind of my special mentions. I don't have a lot of LPs in my collection anymore. You know, they'd probably, like, you know, been sold at, you know, record shows, and, you know, I don't have a ton of records like I used to, where I would just simply buy it just because the album art is fucking cool. You know, like, I stopped doing that kind of buying in my collection. I tried to stop last year because it just felt so impulsive, and it felt so, for lack of a better term, it just kind of felt gross. I battle, you know, issues with addiction. addictions come in all forms. You know, when you notice yourself, like, your record collection grows to over 1,000 or more, and you're like, you're not listening to any of these, and you're only habitually buying it because you know, whatever. I won't talk about the reasons, but there was just too much of that going on for me, and I will buy stuff because just it looks intriguing, you know, and the art is fucking amazing, but it's like it just sits on the shelf. I just don't want to do that anymore. So a lot of these pieces that I bought simply for the artwork that weren't getting spun because I loved it musically, you know, they kind of float away. But I wanted to bring back those and just at least mention them because I love the artwork so much. Of course, we're talking about the one of the heavyweights, the fucking heavyweights, Frank Frazetta. Of course, you're all familiar. Frank Frazetta being, you know, fantasy artist guru extraordinaire from, you know, 60s, 70s. I mean, he started, I think, in the late 50s. With doing a lot of his kind of like, you know, depictions of the female form and stuff like that. But of course, that's what he's really, really known for, is his very hyper realistic and fantasy oriented art, you know, and just, you know, it just graces all of the, you know, LP art and, you know, the Dungeons and Dragons, you know, handbooks and, you know, trading cards and calendars and fucking coffee mugs and t-shirts and like whatever else. Everyone knows of Frank Frazetta. Of course, you know, some of my very favorite, one of my very favorites, being a more modern classic, not a classic, but just a more modern band, that band Wolfmother. They used his wonderful piece called The Sea Witch. I think it's just called The Sea Witch. So anyone that's familiar with Wolfmother and their first self-titled release, which is a badass fucking album. I can't believe I sold my copy of that. I'm gonna get another copy because, yeah. Anyway, that piece of art called The Sea Witch. If anyone's not familiar with it, wow, check it out. Really fucking amazing. Frank Frazetta's Sea Witch. Of course, another one of my very favorites. I believe the album's called Expect No Mercy. From Nazareth, like, dude, that album's so amazing. It's got like this demon and he's like fighting a warrior, like there's like this pulsating brain in the background or some shit. It's fucking so cool. And of course all his stuff he did, you know, Molly Hatchet's, all of Molly Hatchet's albums. You know, the guy was just prevalent in everything fantasy, everything. You know, we're talking role-playing games, we're talking trading cards, we're talking just everything. I have his shit, it's all over my walls. I have a couple up there, I have a couple over there. Like, I love it. I love it to death. But yeah, so that's one of my special mentions. I just don't have a lot of his actual LP album art in my collection anymore, so I can't bring it out to show you. But we all know of him, we all love him. He's a special mention, as well as, of course, I talked last week about him, Alex Grey, and his artistic marriage to the band Tool for at least the last 3 albums that they've done. It began in 2001 with their release Lateralis, and his just super surreal anatomical depictions, dabbling in the sense of like, you know, metaphysical, spiritual, beautiful use of like, you know, psychedelic rainbow colors and just, you know, like I said, those anatomical themes and just like, I can't believe anyone wouldn't be familiar with him by now because he's gained so much just like, he's nearly like a god guru status to people who are artists and to people who are musicians and whatever. He's set up like this kind of like temple to, you know, basically to humankind, where anyone can go and you pay your shills, you know, your $25 to get in. It's called the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors or something like that, and you can see his art and you can feel the vibes and whatever else, you know. So his marriage to the band Tool artistically has just been, you know, another one of those match made in heaven, you know, continuing through, you know, their next release in 2006 with 10,000 Days. The art got even kind of more, I wouldn't say darker, but just even more cerebral and even more visceral and even more, it just, how could you imagine Tool getting any deeper than they already were? And boy, did they, you know? And then 14 years goes by and those guys are still making love to each other. And I won't say that I'm as impressed with the art presentation on Fear Inoculum, but it's still incredibly impressive, and it's still just absolute genius. Um, so yeah, I have Tool LPs, but another thing that's very unfortunate, I didn't want to even bother to bring them out. I mean, I have this one, um, and it's there on, you know, it's there being shown, but they saved the wonderful presentation and packaging and all the artistry for the CD format releases, because obviously it's way cheaper, to put out for everyone to enjoy. And then in LP format, they never did any actual real releases that are like legit releases. This one was a legit release by the band and by the group's record label. Um, but the art presentation is very lackluster, in my opinion. They spent more time and effort and money and energy making picture discs out of it. When of course, like in the CD format version, you get like this amazing like see-through overhead projector lenticular it's just astounding. And especially for 2001, everyone's like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is so wicked cool. And when you get an LP version of something and you're expecting like some real beauty in the art presentation, it really was underwhelming to me. There's literally no art presentation to it whatsoever. There's a holographic, goofy looking baseball shaped, flame eye thing on it, and that's it. And then there's picture discs, and it's like, woo, big deal, fucking picture discs. Who cares about picture discs? It's fucking stupid. But anyway, and then you get no official releases after that. There's still, to this day, since 2006, there's been no official release from Tool Dissectional, Tool Shed, Volcano, whoever the fucking umbrella that, Tool is underneath. There's been no official release of either 10,000 Days or their newest, Fear Inoculum. So, not that I'm not one of those haters that's like, no bootlegs or, no unofficial, like, I've had a couple unofficial pressings of things. I had an unofficial pressing of Anima for years, but I'm just not going to do it anymore. In my opinion, the quality of the LP format isn't any better than the CD format. When it comes to bands like Tool, it was all recorded digitally. It was all digital rendering. So I'm just, I like the art presentation better in the CD format, so I just buy Tool albums on CD. So that's that. Those are my special mentions. Everyone loves Alex Grey. He's, stands alone by himself, super genius. We all worship and appreciate him. So, all right, well, this is it. Last, but definitely not least. Again, one of those bands that has graced my lists many times already. And not just for their insanely cool brand of psychedelic hard rock metal, progressive metal, killer, stupendous, stoner, awesome shit. Their art presentation is absolutely ass grabby. It grabs you right in your squeezy, right in the squishy parts. It's fantastic. They're amazing. You all know them. We all know them. It's the band Elder. This being their most recent release, Omens. Again, I'm not underwhelmed, but the art presentation being just kind of a little bit less in scope than what they had done in previous years with the same individual, the same man. His name is, what is his name? Adrian Dexter. He has done all of it ever since their very first LP, which was what was their first LP? Damn it, it escapes me. That's the artwork right there. Why I can't remember the name of the album right now. But anyway, Adrian Dexter has done all of their artwork, and I think he is absolutely fantastic with a paintbrush. However he's doing it, this being like a really strange kind of like, I don't know, maybe they all like did mushrooms and went to Greece, and like all of these like Grecian statues like started talking to them, like face came off in that one, but who knows. This is the one that turned me on to them. I saw this shit, and I knew immediately that the music had to be killer. I didn't realize it was going to be so fucking good as it is. But yeah, these guys just blew my mind. And it's the art that begins it all. Look at this cool, like, cube pyramid green orb floating in a sea of nothingness, you know? Almost like, you know, cavern, darkness, and sea, and just like, you know, hidden reef beneath the waves. Fucking just beautiful. This is painted, you know what I mean? Like, how crazy. Lot of psychedelic drugs. It's fucking great. Love this band. Roots Stirring. Is that the name of the Dead Roots Stirring? That's the name of that album. That was their first full-length LP. Way more like kind of sludgy, kind of, you know, psychedelic metal kind of stuff. And then they just started slowly but surely per album. This was their second album, full-length LP. It's called Lore. Started getting a little more progressive, a little bit playing, you know, the compositions got to be more like, you know, instead of like these 6-7 minutes, like more like 10, 12, 13, 14 minutes. Way more progressive style, jazz style. You got some synthesizers making an appearance, all kinds of, you know, organ sounds, and really, really cool shit. More of kind of the same kind of idea like what was going on with, you know, Reflections of a Floating World, just like this wonderful theme of, you know, the globe and the earth and the living elements of the earth, and, you know, air, fire, water, you know, all that stuff. Look at this shit. Yeah. Astounding. And I love how they have this die cut. They, you know, so you're able to just kind of like, you get to play with your presentation, you know? I even mix and match with my Elder albums. I like to take from this Elder album and put it with this Elder album, and yeah, I'm a fucking fanboy. I'm such a nerd. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to, you know, the stand-up nature of bands and, you know, what it means, the staying power is like, are these guys, you know, true to the shit? Are they worth their weight in gold? Like, fuck yeah. Who they choose to hang out with and who they choose to involve themselves with in their artistic process, that shit really counts. This dude, Adrian Dexter, I couldn't find anything out about him besides the fact that he's from Massachusetts, from right around the same realm these guys are. I think they all kind of were from and around like Boston and that whole area in Mass, and just probably all hung out together, probably all went to art college together, and all fucking took bong hits and played, you know, video games together, and just like are just a bunch of really cool artistic fucking guys that, thank goodness, they all hung out together and kept playing music together and doing stuff. Adrian Dexter, also a filmmaker, I guess. I read about that and how he has made some, I'm not sure what they are. They judging by the names of the film titles, they sound kind of sci-fi. They sound kind of cool. I think I saw a few screenshots that looked interesting, so I'll have to check that out. Never knew that. So yeah, come for the gorgeous art and stay for the skull-crushing fucking tunes of Elder. Amazing, amazing group. Everyone needs to get familiar with these guys if they're not familiar yet. I've seen them live a couple times. Super cool guys. I have met them. This is Nick DeSalvo's signature. I chatted with him at their merch. He was running their merch booth, and no one was there. No one was talking to him, and he was just sitting back there sipping on a beer. We talked about some weird, obscure, like, horror metal rock band that he loves, and like sat and chatted with him for like 20 minutes, and he signed my LP. And like, really fucking cool guy, very down to earth. Love this band. Everybody listen to this band, buy their art, buy their albums, buy their t-shirts, buy their stickers and patches and tapes, put that shit on your car, tell your friends about them. It's worth it. They're people too. Musicians and artists are people too. So yeah, I'll stop chatting at you. Thanks for letting me do this list for you guys and share another part of my soul with you. Visual art being so much a part of music and vice versa. They inspire each other. It's pretty simple. It's nothing crazy or extraordinary. I mean, it is extraordinary, but not so much more than just like I said, it's that hidden little bit of magic that, the human race is barely still holding on to. There's still magic makers out there, and they can do it. And you have to support and love them and encourage them and listen to them. And we'll all reap the benefits of what these amazing people have to offer us. So thanks again for tuning in to my channel, and please don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends, hey, I know this great channel. You should tune in sometime. He's kind of a weird dude. You should listen though and subscribe to his channel, and they may pay attention to you, and they may do what you ask them to do. So I love you all. Be good to each other. Spin your albums. Keep them clean. Put them away when you're done. Square the circle.